Welcome to Bodernest, your AI-powered learning platform where curiosity meets clarity. In today's lesson, we'll explore one of the most eye-opening chapters in geography: population dynamics. This is the story of people, how many of us there are, where we live, and why our numbers keep changing. Welcome to Bodernest, your AI-powered learning platform where curiosity meets clarity. In today's lesson, we'll explore one of the most eye-opening chapters in geography: population dynamics. This is the story of people, how many of us there are, where we live, and why our numbers keep changing. People pressed shoulder to shoulder, barely space to breathe. Now imagine this scene multiplied across every train, every street, every city on Earth. That's population dynamics, the science behind how humanity fills our planet. Population dynamics is the study of how the number of people in a region changes with time. It looks at three main processes: births, deaths, and migration. Together, these determine whether a country's population grows, declines, or stays steady. For instance, India's population has been rising because birth rates have remained higher than death rates, and because millions of young people continue to live and work here instead of moving abroad. Population dynamics isn't just about counting people, it's about understanding how societies evolve. The Earth's surface isn't evenly occupied. Nearly 60% of the world's people live in Asia. Places like the Indo-Gangetic Plain, Eastern China, and Western Europe are thickly populated because of fertile land, moderate climate, and long histories of civilization. Meanwhile, vast regions such as the Sahara Desert, the Amazon rainforest, or Greenland's ice sheet have fewer than 5 people per square kilometer. This uneven spread of people across land is called population distribution. We measure how crowded a place is using population density. Is text, population density. Is TC, frac text, total population. The text is area, in km. So if 10 million people live in a region of 1 lakh square kilometers, the density is 100 people per kilometers. Countries like Bangladesh and India have densities above 400 people per kilometer. In contrast, Canada and Australia have fewer than 10. High density brings energy, labor, and culture, but also pressure on housing, food, water, and transport. Low density means vast unused resources, but sometimes a shortage of workers. Why do people cluster in some places and avoid others? Let's look at the factors that influence population distribution. Flat, fertile plains attract settlers because they're easy to farm and build on, like the Indo-Gangetic Plain or the Nile Valley. Mountains, deserts, and frozen lands repel people due to harsh climate or poor soil. Water is another magnet. Most great cities began beside rivers or coasts. Where industries grow, people follow. Job opportunities, trade routes, and transport networks pull migrants into cities. Mumbai, Shanghai, and London grew exactly this way. Peaceful governance, education, and healthcare encourage families to settle and raise children. Regions affected by war or political instability lose population as people flee to safer lands. Why do people cluster in some places and avoid others? Let's look at the factors that influence population distribution. Populations change mainly through 3 components: birth rate, death rate, and migration. Birth rate means the number of live births per 1,000 people in a year. A high birth rate causes rapid population growth. Countries with early marriages, limited education, and low access to family planning tend to have more births. In contrast, developed nations, where women work longer and healthcare is advanced, have lower birth rates. Birth rate means the number of live births per 1,000 people in a year. A high birth rate causes rapid population growth. Countries with early marriages, limited education, and low access to family planning tend to have more births. In contrast, developed nations, where women work longer and healthcare is advanced, have lower birth rates. Death rate counts the number of deaths per 1,000 people each year. As nations progress, death rates fall thanks to better medicine, nutrition, and sanitation. When birth rate stays high but death rate drops, Populations explode, just as India's did after 1950. Migration means moving from one place to another for work, safety, or education. When more people enter a country, its population rises. When more leave, it falls. Migration may be internal, rural to urban within a country, or international, between countries. Cities like Delhi and Bengaluru have grown fast because of rural migration, while millions of Indians abroad shape the global economy. Populations change mainly through three components: birth rate, death rate, and migration. When population grows faster than resources, we get overpopulation, too many people, too few jobs, food or homes. Overpopulation leads to unemployment, pollution, shortage of schools and hospitals, and stress on the environment. On the other hand, when a region has abundant resources but not enough people to use them, it's underpopulated. Large parts of Canada and Australia fit this description. Plenty of land and minerals, but harsh climate and distance keep numbers low. The goal is optimum population, a balance where people and resources meet efficiently. Population composition shows the internal structure of a population by age, sex, and occupation. This helps governments plan schools, jobs, and healthcare. In developing countries, a large proportion of people are below 15 years. This means more demand for education and future jobs. Developed countries like Japan or Germany have more elderly citizens, meaning higher pension and healthcare costs. Sex ratio compares the number of males and females per 1,000 people. A balanced ratio ensures stable families and workforce participation. The population can also be divided into primary, agriculture, secondary, industry, and tertiary, services sectors. Developed nations employ most people in services. Developing nations still rely heavily on farming. A population pyramid graphically shows how a country's population is spread across ages and genders. A wide base means many young people, fast growth. A narrow base and wider top mean aging population, slow or negative growth. India's pyramid is gradually narrowing at the base, a sign of slowing birth rates. Population change affects every part of life. A rapidly growing population provides labor and markets. But if jobs don't keep up, unemployment and poverty follow. Too small a population, however, means factories stand idle and economic growth slows. Overpopulation leads to deforestation, pollution, and pressure on water and soil. Cities expand over farmland, waste piles up, and air quality worsens. When cities become overcrowded, living standards fall. Overworked infrastructure leads to traffic jams, housing shortages, and disease outbreaks. Balanced growth, supported by education and awareness, brings stability and sustainability. India is a perfect case study for population dynamics. In 1951, soon after independence, India had about 361 million people. By 2021, it crossed 1.4 billion, almost quadrupling in 70 years. This rise happened because death rates fell sharply due to better healthcare, but birth rates stayed high for decades. Urbanization followed, from 17% urban in 1951 to nearly 36% today. Cities like Mumbai, Delhi, and Bengaluru became magnets for migrants seeking work. The challenge now is to provide enough jobs, housing, and education for this huge young population. At the same time, some southern states show declining fertility, indicating the next stage of transition, slower growth, and aging populations. To manage growth, India introduced family planning programs as early as 1952, one of the first in the world. These focus on education, women's empowerment, healthcare access, and raising awareness about small families. Education of girls, delay in marriage, and use of modern contraception have all helped reduce birth rates. Today, India's fertility rate has fallen to around 2.0, near replacement level, showing progress toward population stabilization. Every country passes through a pattern called the demographic transition model. 1. High birth and death rates, slow growth, pre-industrial. 2. Falling death rate, high birth rate, population boom. 3. Falling birth rate, growth slows. 4. Low birth and death rates, stable or declining population. India currently sits between stages 3 and 4, a critical turning point where education and jobs will shape the future. Japan and many European countries now face population decline, too few births and aging citizens. In contrast, Nigeria and Pakistan still experience rapid growth. China once had strict control policies, but is now easing them to avoid labor shortages. These contrasts remind us that every region must find its own balance between people and resources. Let's recap everything we've learned. 1. Population dynamics studies how and why population changes. 2. Distribution is uneven, dense in fertile temperate regions, sparse in deserts or icy lands. 3. Population density. People, area. 4. Physical, economic and social factors determine where people live. 5. Birth rate, death rate, migration are the three main drivers of change. 6. Overpopulation means pressure on resources. Underpopulation means wasted potential. 7. Population composition shows age, sex, occupation displayed in pyramids. 8. Population change affects economy, society, and environment. 9. India's story shows transition from high to moderate growth. 10. Balanced population, sustainable development. Population isn't just a number, it's the heartbeat of humanity. Every person represents potential to create, to build, to protect the planet. But that potential must be matched with responsibility. When education, equality, and environment work together, people become our greatest resource, not our burden. This lesson was brought to you by Botanest, where knowledge meets the future. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more ICSE geography lessons and AI-powered learning experiences. Because at Botanest, we don't just study the world, we understand how it lives, breathes, and grows.